Hello, and welcome to Cura Conversations, Tales of Hospitality Excellence, where we dive deep into the realms of the people, programs, and culture that make up Cura Hospitality. And I'm your host, Michael Williams. As you know, November 11th is Veterans Day, and today we have a truly special guest that I would like to welcome to Cura Conversations, Tales of Hospitality Excellence. Lauren Foley is the Culinary Director for Cura Hospitality at Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Lauren has 18 years of food service experience and served in the U.S. Coast Guard for 14 years. So thank you, Lauren, for joining me today. Let's start off by just having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Lauren Foley. I'm a U.S. Coast Guard veteran. I am the Culinary Director at Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I work for Cura Hospitality, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And, we're so happy to have you here today, especially as we just celebrated Veterans Day. So, I'll start off with what I feel is kind of the obvious question, but what inspired you to join the military?
Well, in high school, I actually did 2 years of JROTC, and I didn't start till junior year. That's kind of when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was trying to get a bunch of clubs under my belt. I was in Key Club, JROTC. I was class president. I was just trying to have a good resume. I was planning on going to college for art at the time. And then I joined JROTC my junior year, and I really fell in love with it. And based on that, I was really interested in joining the military. So originally, I was interested in joining the Army, but my dad met a Coast Guard captain that was retired on a cruise, and he came back from the cruise, and he's like, "You got to talk to this Coast Guard captain and talk to a Coast Guard recruiter." And at the time, the war in Iraq was still going, and he really didn't want me to be a part of that. Me going to the Army made him really nervous. So I went and talked to the Coast Guard recruiter. I liked what he had to say, and I ended up joining the Coast Guard based on my dad kind of pushing me in that direction. But ultimately, it came down to just really enjoying my time in JROTC in high school.
Well, thank you for sharing about that. When you were in the Coast Guard, can you tell us a little bit about your roles and responsibilities?
Sure. So, my first 2 years, I actually did search and rescue and law enforcement. It was a job called bosun mate. And I did that for about 2 years. And my mom had passed when I was 21. And my mom was a hairdresser and a cook in restaurants for years. So I never really cooked as a kid, but I learned from her. And then when I was in that first 2 years as a bosun mate, I was driving boats. We were doing law enforcement, kind of pulling people over, checking to make sure they had safety gear on board, that their boat was safe to travel offshore. And then in 2008, one of the cooks at our station, I was stationed in Freeport, Texas, um, got kicked out, and we were short a cook. And someone's like, does anybody know how to cook on the staff? And I said, I can cook a little bit. I cook at home, not knowing this was like an underlying talent I had because I was watching the Food Network and kind of trying recipes at home at the time. And I started cooking for my duty section, and everybody was like loving my food. I found myself, I was going through mourning my mom at the time. So, I was going through a tough time, and I found that every time I was in the kitchen cooking that I was happy. So I switched in 2008 to be a culinary specialist. And I went to culinary school in Petaluma, California. And then after that, they send you out into the fleet, and I was on several ships. So on the ships, it's kind of almost like the regular culinary industry out in the real world. You start as a line cook, and then they put me in the storeroom. And in the storeroom, I would do inventory. I would, balance the budget. I would make sure all the numbers aligned. I'd break out the food for the cooks the next day. And then from there, you get promoted into management, where you would actually run the kitchen on the ship, and you'd be over the person running the storeroom and the line cooks. And from there, I actually taught at our culinary school in Petaluma, California for 3 years, spent time on running a kitchen on another ship, and then ultimately ended in our food safety and sanitation team, where I would do kitchen audits and travel around the country and do audits on ships.
Wow, it sounds like you had quite the experience out there. And I like how you say that, when you're doing this all on a ship, that it's just like being in a restaurant. I'm, I'm gonna guess there's a little differences there, but you know, hearing all that you did on the ship, tell us a little bit about some of the skills that you learned that has transferred over to your, your current role.
Best compliments I've gotten since I've gotten out is my ability to stay calm under pressure. So, I definitely feel like I learned that while I was in the military. Just, at sea, there's life and death situations, high stress situations, and those translate into the real world where now things get stressful at work, and I'm the one that's able to stay calm. And I feel like when, the leader stays calm, everybody stays calm. But, so I feel like my ability to stay calm has transferred, into the real world. And if I had to pick another one, I'd say my ability to recognize my team recognition. When you make a certain rank in the Coast Guard, it's called Chief Petty Officer. You have to go to a month-long leadership school as a part of making that rank. And one of the things we had to do in that leadership school was do a 360 review where your superiors, your peers, and your subordinates all critique you in a survey. So it's pretty humbling. You can imagine if you've ever had the opportunity to do one. And my superiors and my peers were pretty kind to me in it, but my subordinates, the number one thing they said they wanted to see more from me was recognition. So that kind of hit me really hard, and I worked really hard from that point to show recognition to my staff more. And I've taken that with me into the civilian sector. And I think that's what's made me successful in my new role as the director at Women's Hospital, because I really tried to show the team that I appreciate them and do whatever I can do to tell them they're doing a good job daily.
So I see the post that you do on LinkedIn, celebrating your team. So I will say that that lesson has truly stuck with you because there's some amazing work that you all are doing there that you recognize. It seems like almost on a daily basis there's something that you're doing for recognition. And I've been through a 360 review before. They're not ever easy, but really they are a great learning experience. You were kind of touching upon your return to civilian life. So can you tell us about one of the hardest things that, coming from the Coast Guard back to the civilian life that you had to adapt to?
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me was just kind of finding a sense of purpose again. When you're in the military for over a decade, you live and breathe it. And I joined when I was 18, so I didn't know anything else. So I got out and just trying to find a career path that was rewarding. I had a couple of jobs when I got out. I was trying to feel out what I liked. Ultimately, I started in college dining. I ended up in K-12 for a little bit, and then I ended up in healthcare. And healthcare is really where I kind of found my purpose again. I feel like I make a difference in healthcare. My customers appreciate the services we offer. So just really finding a new purpose and a new path, I think, was what I struggled with the most. But I'm very happy working in healthcare, and I've really enjoyed it. And I want to continue to be in that field.
Awesome. And you kind of taken us back to when you were 18 and you started. But I did want to ask, can you tell us about, kind of your first feeling or how you felt when you first arrived for your training?
Sure. Yeah. You take this long bus ride to boot camp. And for me, luckily, I was physically prepared. I'd been training in JRTC, so I was in shape. I was ready for that part of boot camp. But you're not mentally prepared for it because you don't know what to expect. And you pull up on base, and a bunch of drill instructors, we call them company commanders in the Coast Guard, just get on the bus and start yelling in your face and telling you what to do. And it's really stressful. But it's an 8-week boot camp. They build you down, or they break you down to build you back up. And they teach you teamwork, they teach you discipline. And yeah, it was crazy. I don't know if I'd want to go back and do it again, but you come out on the other end, a stronger person for it, for sure.
Wow. So in some cases, it is kind of like what you see in the movies where, with the yelling and you hear that all the time that they try and break you down just to build you back up and make you better. Um, when you go through situations like that, it's easy to form friendships at times or have mentors. So, is there any friend or mentor that you made along the way that had a lasting impact on you?
Absolutely. I actually had one of my best friends. I met her while I was in the Coast Guard. Her name's Brianna. She's actually still in. She's a recruiter now. And her and her husband came last weekend for Halloween and hung out with me. And, we got to reminisce on old times and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I met her at a unit where before I showed up, everybody told me, like, you guys are too much alike. You're not going to get along. And they were kind of like pitting us against each other before we even met. And we met each other. And from the second I met her, we were very like minded. And she became one of my best friends in life. And then my mentor is Master Chief Justin Reed. They actually call him like the grandfather of the culinary world and the Coast Guard. He actually was the one that got our culinary school in the Coast Guard ACE accredited. So we're the only branch of the military that has an ACE accredited culinary school. And when I got out of school myself, he called the school at the time, and they needed a young person to be on the culinary team, and they had said I did really well. They name dropped me, and he brought me onto the traveling culinary team for 2 years and mentored me. And at the time, they needed someone to do all these baking competitions, and I didn't have a lot of baking experience. And he taught me and showed me, and I, caught on really fast. And I ended up getting several ACF medals at these culinary competitions. And then he was also the one that asked me if I wanted to teach at the culinary school. And I ended up being the lowest ranking person on the staff at the culinary school. And it was a little intimidating, but, he made sure nobody bullied me and that I was respected as a lower ranking instructor. And just, everything he's done for me and just his knowledge. I just really appreciate it.
That's awesome, and it's great to hear, that some of these friendships that you gain, that you were able to keep them up through the years. As people get busier, it's sometimes easy to you know, kind of let friendships fall aside, but that didn't happen. So that's awesome. It, do you have any advice for anybody who may be considering joining the Coast Guard or any of the branches of the military?
Yes, I would start with first, the military is a great opportunity, but do your research on what branch you want to join, stay in shape, obviously, and weigh all your options. And if it's the best thing for you, go for it. I'll never regret serving my country. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And you pretty much ran through every question that I had, but I just wanted to end with anything that, I didn't ask about that you feel that our listeners should know about you or your time in the Coast Guard or your time with Cura Hospitality.
I mean, I could tell a million stories about myself in the military and just things that we've experienced. But ultimately, getting out and being a part of Cura, I worked for two other companies, and Cura is the first one where I felt really welcomed, and they just had really strong leadership. And for me, that, like, again, going back to the sense of purpose, finally finding a place where I belong. So for anybody who's having a tough time transitioning into the civilian sector, don't give up right away. Just, keep trying to find something that fits you, because it is a hard transition. But there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know we are all busy and it's never easy carving out the time, so I do appreciate that. And also, just I wanted to thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Cura Conversations, Tales of Hospitality Excellence. And a big thank you to Lauren Foley, the Culinary Director for Cura Hospitality at Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for joining us today and sharing her expertise. We hope you found our discussion on today's topic insightful and engaging.
Since 1999, Cura has specialized in serving life plan communities, behavioral health, and acute care facilities. Cura creates dining service programs specific to each client's needs, taking the worry of guest safety and satisfaction, employee development, and operational and fiscal challenges off our clients' plates. As our clients' needs evolve, so do we. We are a company of experienced dining service professionals that is part of Elior North America. Together, we are small enough to care and big enough to make a difference. Thank you for listening to Cura Conversations, Tales of Hospitality Excellence, and we hope you will visit us at curahospitality.com to learn more about how we nurture well-being with every meal we serve.